weeping over the remains of Iran's top military commander. Supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei visibly moved as he leads funeral prayers for his former close ally. Hundreds of thousands of mourners gathered to pay their respects to General Qassem Soleimani, killed in a US drone strike in Iraq on Friday. His assassination is considered a declaration of war by many Iranians. Speaking at her father's funeral, the general's own daughter has promised reprisals.
Families of American soldiers in Western Asia have witnessed America's humiliation in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Palestine. They will spend their days waiting for the death of their children.
In the parliament, there have also been cries of death to America.
The savage action of the U.S. president is considered a military act of terrorism. You ought to know that this adventure will have painful consequences for you.
And the anger is spreading across borders. In Lebanon, the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia has threatened to hit American forces in the region. Meanwhile, the Iraqi parliament has voted to end the U.S. military presence in the country. Some 5,000 U.S. troops are there, officially to help defeat so-called Islamic State. U.S. President Donald Trump has already warned Baghdad that it could be hit by tough sanctions if it follows through with this threat. But it's Iran's promise of revenge that's focusing minds. Tehran has already announced it will no longer abide by the 2015 nuclear deal, raising the stakes even further.
I'm joined now by Adnan Tabatabai, a Middle East analyst who's with a think tank, Center for Applied Research in partnership with the Orient. Welcome to you. Now, we saw a lot of anger in Iran over the killing of General Soleimani. When Iran talks about revenge, what does that mean?
We have to think it in two ways. There will be a short-term way of revenge, which is more or less like a blood revenge or a vendetta, which brings American lives in the reach of Iran in the Middle East, which puts those lives in danger. And then there will be a mid- and long-term revenge, which will actually focusing on ousting the U.S. in the region of the Middle East. And that is a strategy that Qassem Soleimani had embodied.
OK, talking about ousting the U.S. from the Middle East. Now, Soleimani's assassination in Iraq has also led to a spike of tensions between the U.S. and Baghdad. What are the implications of that?
I mean, it's not difficult to understand how carrying out such an operation on a sovereign and harming the sovereignty of a country like Iraq will lead to these reactions. It's a parliamentary decision. It's not legally binding yet, but it sets loose a sort of dynamics that are putting, again, American troops in danger in Iraq and can ultimately lead to the ousting of the U.S. troops from Iraq, led by Iraq and not by Iran.
And how important is the presence of U.S. troops in Iraq?
Well, that's a completely different subject matter that needs to be discussed. In fact, the U.S. has been working together with Iraq and to some extent with the Iranians to fight terrorist groups, to fight the likes of ISIS, to fight Al-Qaeda and other groups, and for that matter, equipping the Iraqi army, training them. That has been the role of the U.S. But at the same time, it has also been accused of certain abuses. It has been target of attacks by different militias that are operating in Iraq. So there is a real mixed picture of what U.S. presence in Iraq really means.
And what about the wider region? I mean, Iran has a militia operating in several countries, as you said.
This U.S. attack, this targeted assassination, didn't only kill Qassem Soleimani, but a top Iraqi commander, Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, and alongside a Lebanese actor, a Lebanese stakeholder, and an important person. So there will also be revenge sought by these groups, and that is certainly something that Iran cannot control, and that's another level that the U.S. needs to be concerned about.
Adnan Tabatabai, Middle East analyst, thank you very much for your assessment.
My pleasure.
Let me now draw in DW's Terry Schultz. She's our NATO correspondent in Brussels. Terry, NATO ambassadors are holding an urgent meeting today to talk about the fallout from General Soleimani's killing. What can we expect from this meeting?
That's right. It will be the first time that NATO is meeting in the new year, and not under such good circumstances. But it's going to be very important to take the pulse of NATO allies regarding the NATO mission in Iraq. Now, that's a non-combat training operation. There are several hundred personnel there who've been advising and providing assistance to the Iraqi Ministry of Defense and to the national security apparatus. And that mission was suspended after the killing of Qassem Soleimani. And it's not clear what will happen with those people, if they will be asked to remain in the country, hoping for a very temporary suspension, depending on developments on the ground. So this will be important to ask allies what they intend to do. They will also be very interested in hearing from the United States on its intentions in the region. There's a lot of discomfort among European allies. No one was fond of Iranian militias, but many European governments are also not comfortable with targeted killings like this, and obviously the repercussions that are already being seen, for example, with Iran's announcement that it would no longer adhere to the nuclear deal. So there's a lot to discuss. These are not the kind of meetings where there will be a statement at the end, but it is possible that we will hear from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. That's unclear at this point.
DW's Terry Schultz at NATO headquarters in Brussels. Thank you very much.